Today we're going to talk about how we determine missing angles on a kite, how we can determine angles that are formed by the diagonals of a kite, how we can measure the line segments of a kite, and how we can determine missing angles on trapezoids. So remember that a kite is a quadrilateral with exactly two distinct pairs of congruent sides. So that means these two are congruent, those two are congruent, but they are not congruent to each other. When we're looking at a kite, there's a few parts that you should know. The vertex angles are going to be the angles between congruent sides. So in this picture, that's angle C and angle A. Non-vertex angles then are just the other angles, or if we want to sound fancy, the angles between non-congruent sides. So in this picture, that's angle B and that's angle D. And a kite also has one line of reflectional symmetry, and it is right there. Right? Because think, hey, those sides are the same, these sides are the same. If I folded it in half, everything would match up. We're going to use that idea a couple times today. So the kite angles conjecture says that, hey, if you fold it along that line, the non-vertex angles are congruent. If you want to prove this, draw yourself a kite, measure those angles with a protractor, or just pause this video and do it quick, and you should notice that you get the same measurement. If I draw in the diagonals of my kite, so I still have that line of symmetry, and then I also have one going right here. Take a minute and pause this video, measure right here. You should get 90 degrees. So that means our diagonals are perpendicular. When I have those diagonals drawn in again, so I have one here and I have one there. Okay. If this line is my line of symmetry, that means that when I fold in half, things have to match up, right? So that means those parts have to be the same too. So the diagonals of a kite bisect. I'm going to change this to the diagonal of a kite bisects the other, because it only happens one way. So in other words, let's see, that is BD. So CA bisects CD. No, BD. But BD does not bisect CA. One last thing that you need to know. I have these angles drawn in. The diagonals of a kite are going to bisect the vertex angles. And I know this because, again, if CA is my line of symmetry, when I fold everything in half, stuff on either side has to match up. So those angles are going to be cut in half. All right, moving to a trapezoid. Remember, a quadrilateral with exactly one distinct pair of parallel sides is a trapezoid. So these two are parallel, my other two are not. When I'm looking at the consecutive angles of a trapezoid, so if I think about this angle and that angle, okay, if these lines are parallel, if I extended everything, it's easy to see that I have parallel lines being cut by a transversal. So if this is x and that's y, then x also shows up right here, because that's a corresponding angle. And then x and y make a linear pair, which means they have to be supplementary. So I can say that the consecutive angles of a trapezoid are supplementary. This doesn't mean, however, that z and x are supplementary. Okay, and it also doesn't mean that z and y are supplementary unless these sides are the same, which we'll get into more later. All right, an isosceles trapezoid is a trapezoid whose non-parallel sides are congruent. I think of it as an isosceles triangle who got a haircut. All right, if I cut right there, these sides are still the same. The base angles of an isosceles trapezoid are always going to be congruent because, again, it's just an isosceles triangle. If I extended the sides and made a triangle, those base angles would be the same. When I cut off the top, that doesn't change. If, again, I have that isosceles trapezoid, so these sides are the same, and I draw in some diagonals, they both have these congruent sides and this base. That means that third side has to be congruent as well, okay, because the angles are also the same. So the diagonals of an isosceles trapezoid will be congruent. If you are feeling lost, scared, confused, generally distressed, I would either try watching this video again, watch that video, or check Schoology. There's some Quizlets with all of these facts to help you kind of remember which parts are congruent, which parts are bisectors, which parts are perpendicular, all that good stuff, because there was a lot today.